In today's video, we're going to continue the conversation around what questions you should be asking your videographer. It's time to eat the elephant.
Wait, eat elephants? Let's go!
Okay, so what does eating elephants have to do with video production? Sorry if I threw you for that one. But we asked the question a couple of weeks ago and just asked people, hey, when it comes to video production, what are the challenges that you see? And one person compared doing video to that of eating an elephant, how tough it would be. And how do you eat an elephant, Bobby?
You eat it one piece at a time.
Yeah, I don't know what it tastes like, but
I would have wanted to taste it.
Probably kind of tough.
Yeah.
So today what we want to talk about is what should you expect from your videographer on the second aspect of the video project, and that is really the day of production.
Yeah.
So the first thing that you should be getting from your videographer should be either some sort of a call sheet or a schedule or something that shows what time they're going to be there to set up their gear. And this is going to start the rest of the time that you're going to have with them for the day. Where are you going to be shooting at? What location or locations? And if they're going to be at your business, are you structuring that time where you're the least busiest? Does it matter? Like some businesses, it doesn't quite literally. And are you going to be in a spot where there's not going to be a lot of interruptions? That can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we dive super deep into this, the more work that you can do in the upfront, the easier the day of production is going to be. So the more pre-production, the more planning that you can do, the easier production is going to be, both for you and that videographer as well.
And when we're talking about pre-production, check out this video right up here.
Bam.
Which was our last one that we did. And it talks about some of those pre-production phases that Bobby was talking about, the more work you do up front. The second piece that you want to get is if you're going to be doing testimonials, you probably should get those questions from your videographer ahead of time. You may have those questions. Maybe you're the one that's creating those questions. What we like to do on our end is we like to create the questions for the customers. So for example, we can pull up any number of questions that we've either used on projects or just kind of best practices. And we don't want to put that burden on our customer that they have to create the client interview questions. We typically can understand from the pre-production what kinds of questions that we want to ask, and then we want to kind of drill in a little bit deeper. Now, customers like you that are watching this video and are looking for a videographer, you may not have that information in your head about what would it take to ask the right questions to get someone to kind of reveal stuff that they're not maybe comfortable with. And that's where we're kind of that middleman. We're that individual who can ask the tough questions. And it's typically in a situation where you, the business owner, won't even be around, and it'll be just us talking to the customer.
Yeah.
And then they can kind of say what they want to say.
Yeah. Telling stories is important. And so having that in the schedule, whether it's, that all has to do with pre-production, but making sure that that person is comfortable. Like a lot of people, when they see cameras and they see the lights and they see everything, they are nervous. And something that Jeff and I that we're good at, and I'm gonna bring on us a little bit, is we have the personalities of making sure that that person's comfortable. Something that I love that Jeff says when we sit down for an interview, hey, if you don't want to keep eye contact with me as we're talking, talk to my forehead. And it's those little things of teaching them of like, hey, let's make you comfortable. We get there's lights and cameras here, but let's make you comfortable.
Yeah, we should probably do a video around that about the right way or the wrong way to interview people. Like you'll notice one of the things that Bobby and I do a lot, like as he's talking or I'm talking, is like we're nodding our heads. We're just kind of showing like, yeah, I understand what you're saying. When you're interviewing somebody, that's one of the things that we employ. Like if I'm talking to Bobby and I'm asking him questions and he begins to maybe tell me this heartfelt story, well, if I just look at him like, He's going to probably shut down. He's just going to like hate me. Like, dude, I'm bearing my soul and you're just looking at me like I'm nothing. You need to have a level of empathy. I think that is massive as a videographer, because you are trying to get emotion. You're trying to get that story out of them. So the more that you can nod your head in agreement to understand, you might even have to shed a tear or two, because I know that I do that with certain clients. If they're telling a really gut-wrenching story, I'm connecting with them. And if I'm connecting with them, they're connecting with me. They're connecting with the camera, and they're going to connect with the audience, which is massive.
Now, let's switch it up a little bit.
Okay.
We'll talk about one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
I'm a geek out. But part of production is knowing the gear too. Not you guys knowing the gear, but making sure that videographer who's working for you is knowing the gear, and also for you guys to know what gear they're bringing to the table. Because the last thing that you want is for production to come up and then all of a sudden they're, with a whole bunch of iPhones. Nothing against iPhones, but there are quality differences that we need to talk about.
And so here's a I'll put this in red flashing lights or something to really call this out. If your videographer does not have redundant gear, then you should run. And what do I mean by that? Again, you don't have to be a gearhead to understand this.
Yeah.
But if they don't have a couple of cameras in place, run. They should definitely have 2 cameras at any given point in time, and here's why. What happens if one of those cameras suddenly loses power? If the card, the SD card or the CFast card decides to go down, you've got no content. And you're spending a lot of money for them to be there. You're spending a lot of money probably in personal resources for people to be there. And if those cameras go down, if the lights go down, if the audio goes down, if there aren't redundancies in the gear, then tell them to leave and come back a different day.
And let me give you guys a real world situation. So I was on a shoot for they do root canals, right? And I had 2 cameras. I only needed one because it was just me. And I had 2 cameras, and I was shooting what we call B-roll, which is the flashy video stuff that goes along with testimonial stuff. And I had my 2 cameras. I had a gimbal and I had a tripod. The gimbal was working all day, and then we were doing something, and then the gimbal stopped working. Well, now what? The redundancy was a tripod or my second camera that had in-body image stabilization. So a gimbal is meant to keep the camera steady, but even within that, I had redundancies. I had a tripod, and then I had a secondary camera that could do what the gimbal kind of did.
All sorts of insider language you're learning here with IBS.
Yeah, in-body image stabilization.
IBS. That's usually your bowel syndrome stuff.
Yeah, but
IBIS, not IBS.
Yeah,
right?
But the point is that the importance of redundancies, because when you're on shoots and stuff, things can happen. We don't like seeing that happen, but things can happen, and to have those redundancies and making sure that we are because before we even go on a shoot, we make sure that we have this piece of gear, we have these pieces of gear, but then we're also saying, okay, what else do we need? And we actually, before production, we actually come here to make sure that all the gear is ready to go. So when we get here, we have everything.
Yeah, so another thing you could ask your videographer of choice, which kind of bounces off of Bobby, is, do they have checklists of gear that they're going to bring to your shoots? Anybody can forget a vital piece of gear. It happens to us from time to time. Not very often,
No.
because the checklist makes sure. So we have to make sure that all of the cameras are ready to go, that they're at the right settings the day before. All of the cards that we use, whether they're CFast cards or SD cards, their memory cards, are those formatted and cleaned off and ready to go? Are the batteries fully charged and ready to go? And all of the other miscellaneous gear, making sure that we've got the right cords in place, the right cables, we've got the right lights that we're going to bring with us, the C-stands. There's a lot that goes into it. So asking your videographer, do you have a checklist that you go off of? It's just one more assurance, if they do, that you've hired the right videographer.
You want to hear a horror story?
Sure.
I was talking with a friend of mine. I ain't gonna say who, and
no,
it was not. It was not him. There was a videographer here in town that drove 3 hours away to go shoot something, He got there, unpacked his camera, everything was going well, and then he went to hit record, do a test recording, and guess what he forgot?
Memory cards.
He forgot a memory card.
Oh.
And so for us, it's like hearing horror stories like that is like the attention to detail, making sure that that videographer has the attention to detail, because what that shows is that he values you, because he's coming to the set prepared, and not just prepared, but over prepared.
Yeah, I like that. Because I mean, that should be the new standard for a videographer. I mean, that should not happen. I understand how it could happen, because there are a lot of details, a lot of things that can get missed. But yeah, that's going to be the sign of a good videographer for sure, that they just have a checklist and the gear's ready to go.
Yeah, and the last thing that I would say on production that is so important on production day is communication.
Boom.
Communication is so huge. You mentioned this earlier about like, hey, where we're going to set up. Hey, are we keeping to schedule? Are we behind schedule? Hey, how can we make up time? And part of that is for us as video guys, we want to make sure that you're feeling comfortable and that you're seeing the product that you're going to that you're going to have. And we want you to be a part of that process as well.
Yeah. So along those lines of communication, it's not just communication. I mean, it's part of it, but you as a videographer have to make everybody feel comfortable. You're almost like the DJ at a wedding in a way. Like, you've got to make people feel very comfortable, and you have to expect the unexpected as a videographer, and you've got to roll with those punches, and you've got to do what you can to reduce the anxiety of customers like you if we're watching this. So again, that kind of comes back down to the fit of that videographer that you want to choose. Do you perceive that this person can handle stress well? And what's that going to look like if, what hits the fan? Are they going to be able to roll with the punches and create something out of nothing if there's a problem that pops up?
And I'm going to say this, the worst thing that your videographer can say to you is, we'll fix it in post.
Go fix it in post.
We'll fix it in post.
Oh, yeah. So again, these are some of the things that you should be asking your videographer about as it pertains to what you can expect on production day from them. What are those checklists? How well are they going to handle things? Do they have that empathetic ear for those interviews? Do they have the right gear? Do they have the redundancies in place? All of these and more are great questions to ask. And if you have more questions around what you should expect on production day, Bobby,
leave them in the comment section below. And speaking of that, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell to get notified when we are dropping a new video. And remember, this is the year, 2021 is the year to own your story.